Hello and welcome to Seed&Spark's Innovators House. I am Meghan Ross. I'll explain more about myself in a little bit, but for those who are first-timers at Innovators House, this has been a week of programming. This is our last day during Sundance and Slamdance, drawing together independent creators and industry heavyweights in technology and entertainment. Our focus is narrative change, storytelling as cultural innovation, and social justice. And Emily used this phrase earlier, innovation divorced from technology, which I like because I do not want an AI to take all my writing jobs. I'd love that. I'd love for that not to happen. So I'll introduce myself. I'm the head of creator success at Seed&Spark. I'm also a writer, director, producer, comedian, middle child, lots of things I don't get paid for. And I was inspired to do this panel after my own timely rejection. So I am a Sundance Episodic Lab 2021 to 2022 fellow, where I wrote my half-hour comedy Here to Make Friends, and then I got a grant from the Sundance Institute to make that proof of concept short film, and then I got into the Woman at Sundance Adobe Fellowship, where they gave me a second grant, and so 2 fellowships and 2 grants later, and many referrals to the shorts programming department, I thought, we're a shoo-in. And then I got my rejection email. And then 30 seconds after I Slacked Julie and I was like, can I do a panel on Sundance that Rejection is creative fuel? The funny thing is that, right before I got the email, I had woken up from a nap. Yeah, I nap. And I came up with the idea, the next project my brother and I are gonna co-direct and produce, and I was opening up the Google Docs to write the pitch doc for that idea to start brainstorming when I saw the rejection email. So I thought, damn, that's kismet, maybe. So Rejection as creative fuel thus was born. And I am joined by a few wonderful human beings and creators and, just brilliant brains that were, eager enough to jump on this topic and talk about the losses as much as the wins. So I'll introduce, we'll go down the line. Lisa Cunningham is a native of Atlanta and entered film production while attending the University of Georgia. Over the past 20 years, she has been actively involved in the production community in Atlanta, with her work spanning throughout film and television on hundreds of projects. Now with a strong footing in health and social justice digital content, Lisa has produced or directed projects for McDonald's, the City of Atlanta, the History Channel, and more. Lisa works with several nonprofit organizations, such as the Black Women's Health Imperative, where she is Director of Digital Communications. Lisa was selected by Mayor Kacie Lance Bottoms to serve on the inaugural LGBTQ advisory board for the City of Atlanta and re-engaged with the current mayor for his transition team. Her community involvement continues as a philanthropist who devotes her time to several local charities focused on disadvantaged youth and underserved minorities. And she's also on our creative advisory board, as if she has time. I like hyping people up and reading their bios, and then we're gonna just talk about our failures right after this. Next, we have best friends, business partners, and neighbors, Kacie, Lett Gordon, and Katie Louise Mullins, who are the creators of the Fuck It All podcast, 16K listeners and counting, for Modern Woman Redefining It All, and co-founders of It All Media, a home for the news stories that define us and conversations women want to have. Through story and conversation, they are committed to redefining the systems that run our lives at work, at home, and in our communities, and together have collectively 20-plus years experience, led 50-plus team members, lived and worked in Atlanta, D.C., Charleston, Cincinnati, and Thailand, scaled a 10 million professional services businesses, and raised over 10 million in funding, and named top BTC startup in 2022. And then you ended your bio with LFG, so let's fucking go. Stefanie Abel Horowitz directed theater for a decade before pivoting to film. She is the co-writer of the feature film Sometimes I Think About Dying, starring Daisy Ridley, which is premiering here at Sundance. She is also the director co-writer of the short film of the same title, which premiered at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival, is also a film forward short with Seed&Spark, traveled the world on the Sundance Shorts Tour, garnered Abel Horowitz the Future Filmmaker Award from Palm Spring Film Festival, and was shortlisted nominated for the 92nd Academy Awards. As writer-director, she most recently worked with the Disney Launchpad Shorts Incubator Program. Her short, Let's Be Tigers, premiered on Disney Plus in May 2021. She's also directed narrative podcasts whose cast lists include Rami Malek, Cole Sprouse, Coleman Domingo, and Emily Hampshire. She is an alum of the 2019 New Voices Sundance Lab, as well as a member of Lincoln Center Directors Lab. And her essay, He's Your Destiny, Just Be Patient, was published as part of the New York Times Modern Love column in June 2019. So give it up for our amazing panelists. All right, we're all film lovers here, so I'm gonna, basically do a little reference to a film trope. I want to hear your rejection meet cute. So a time in your life when you were met with a rejection, but it led you towards a creative choice or path that was more fulfilling.
And I'll start. And I'm piggybacking off of what you just said was your motivation for this panel, actually, because I started thinking about it in preparation for talking, and I said to myself, the rejection that I experienced at any given point in my life was for who I was right then that day, right? It was not for my future self. And so if we constantly think of rejection that way, we're never bothered by it. And so I remember and it's crazy to see someone here that was actually a part of this, I was hell-bent upon having a reality show on television. I mean, hell-bent. And I live in Atlanta, and I'm a native of Atlanta, the capital of reality TV. So this should be easy, right? I'm pretty connected. And so I did just that. I came up with this wonderful concept, and we were going to be the gay housewives of Atlanta.
Shame on the people who rejected that.
Yeah, well, that's the weird part. So we got through the process. You guys know the process. It's a process. We did the pilot. We did this. And the holy grail of reality TV, Mona Scott Young gave me a call. And she said, want to give you a TV show. Oh, my gosh, really? So we get this show with her. She sends over this agreement. And I had some other people attached to it. And the deal ultimately fell through. Devastated. Hooked up with Candy Burris, who was a part of the project, and she got it through to Bravo, and it still stalemated eventually. And I mean, when I tell you, it took me from a 10 to a 2 for a few years, because I just really could not see a way forward path to this next path. But who I was then isn't who you see sitting here today. This person who has transformed their lives, that knew that I really ultimately wanted to do content, not to knock reality TV because it is a guilty pleasure for many of us, right? But that I knew that the legacy that I was trying to build was something totally different. So I had to eventually tap into that in order to get me to sit here today. So that rejection wasn't for me today. That was for the past me.
Yeah, I love that.
So here we are.
I'm actually gonna let Kacie start with her moment of rejection because it is our meet cute for our business.
Nice.
And it tees up my failure and rejection.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let her begin.
We were laughing. This takes off so much pressure when you can get up here and just talk about all the times it went bad instead of having to hype all your good times.
Yeah.
So in 2019, I was senior vice president of a consulting firm in Atlanta. I was 6 months postpartum, and the I don't know, fuck it all moment of it is that I was promoted as I was going out on maternity leave. And in theory, I thought, what a progressive company. I'm going to go out. I'm going to become a mom. I'm going to come back. I'm going to have this beautiful child. I'm going to have the great husband. I joke, like all the way down to the picket fence and the dog. Like we had it all. And then in December 2019, God love my daughter, she did not sleep. And so I was sleep deprived, leading a team, responsible for a bigger P&L, more pressure than I had ever had in my professional career. As a person, as a woman, I felt my strongest going through motherhood, but in all the ways that I had previously defined success, I felt so vulnerable. And it really drew to me the fact that the system lacked the infrastructure to support a new mom as an executive. And it pissed me off, frankly, because I had put all my eggs in that basket. I had bet if I did all the things and got all the good marks and finally got to that place, that it would pay off. And in December 2019, I wanted to drive my car off the road. I was heading to get my daughter, and I thought that retaining wall looks a lot better than anything I'm doing right now. And thank God for good support system. I went home to my husband. I said, like, this isn't sustainable. I can't do this. And if this is having it all, I opt out. I do not want this. COVID hits 3 months later, which was, super secure and peaceful. And you think all the things that I was planning, how do I pay off my student loans? I was a breadwinner in my family. How do I secure enough money? How do I have peace of mind in order to take time away to figure out what's next? Thankfully, I had a best friend that was similarly going through some fuck it all moments herself, hence the name of the podcast. And by the fall of that year, I said, whatever it means, if we have to downsize, if I have to go be a barista at Starbucks, whatever it means, this is not it. So I walked away, and the joke is I was supposed to take 12 weeks off as I looked for my next job. I took 6 days. And because I was so fueled, the rejection, it was less about from an external rejection, but it was the fact that I bought into the system and I did all the things, and the system I felt like chewed me up and spit me back out. And so I, as one does naturally, I hadn't been in any sort of creative space or storytelling in over a decade. I had my degree in that, but since I'd gone on into more secure, as I thought, paths. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to start a podcast, because what women say often is how valuable what we say is directly correlative to how attractive we are. And podcasts take everything away. And we're all stuck at home in COVID. Like, my hair was in a bun and, living in my closet, recording my podcast. And my goal was 10 stories. I thought this will scratch that creative itch as I move into what's next. And I reached out to my network. I said, hey guys, I'm doing this. It's called Fuck It All. Tell me about your moments. And in a week, I had a backlog of 100 stories. And it was just giant confirmation for me that this was not something that I was individually experiencing. That it was part of a bigger movement. And I think since 2020, it's just been accelerated because the systems on so many levels have begun to fracture. So after that started, and I had, 2 months under my belt, I called someone else who was having her own fuck it all moment.
That someone was me.
Spoiler.
Spoiler indeed. So I was originally one of the 10 stories that Kacie wanted to tell. We've been best friends for 12 years. We met in grad school. And I had been in a relationship in the South for about 7 years, was engaged, and it all fell apart very quickly. And upon exiting that relationship, I decided within the month that I was going to move to Thailand. I've worked in nonprofit social impact advocacy strategy for the last decade, and I really wanted the international experience. It's what my background was in. So I was like, this is it, I'm going. So I packed up everything and moved my life into a storage unit, and I moved to Thailand. For a year, little over a year, and I met the most phenomenal community of people that kind of I could identify with. We were so valued, and my power came flooding back. And it was just such a, empowering experience to meet all of these people with unique stories from such different backgrounds. We had so much in common. And feeling like the best possible version of myself, I moved back to the States and COVID hit. So I kind of was like without a home, without a job, without a plan. And so all these old narratives fell right back in to my brain. I mean, I was like, okay, I've got to get a leadership role, and I have to work for 5 years, and then I can contract, and then I'll have enough clout to do this, and I probably should work with these organizations. So I moved myself to DC because it's a nonprofit hub, and I started looking for jobs, and I went to kind of the top of an interview process with a company, and I did not get the position. So I called Kacie and left a message at a very weird time during the day, and she was like, I bet you she didn't get that job. So she calls me back the next day and makes a pitch, and says, without even running this by her husband first, she was like, I think you should move to Atlanta. I think what I'm doing, I think it's bigger. I think its systems change, and we want to tell stories like, let's build this business together. You can live in my backyard. And in a carriage, I mean, I probably would have moved for the tent. But anyway, she gives me this pitch, and she's very good at sales. And within 20 minutes, I thought, oh shit, I'm moving to Atlanta. So I called her back 3 hours later because I had to run logistics by both myself and my family and see if I could coax my dad into, bringing a moving truck to DC. So moved to Atlanta, and we began building this business. And this is the path I was always meant to be on. Always meant to be on, and it has brought me back to life and helped me meet people that it's beyond the biggest dream I could have ever had. And it's been hard as hell, but worth it. So
I have one.
You brought your own.
I brought my own from home. These are like such big stories, you guys. I was sitting here thinking about what I was going to say. The thing is, this happens all the time in our lives where we have big rejections and then change course in some way. But I think I'll tell the story that probably most filmmakers want to hear, which is about Sometimes I Think About Dying, the feature film that premiered on Thursday. So we made the short. It was only my second short film, and we got into Sundance, which was a very wild experience. And then it did all these wonderful things, and it got shortlisted for an Oscar, and everybody loved it, and blah, blah, blah. I'm just setting up that we were feeling really good. We were feeling really confident, and we decided to write this feature version. And I was attached, and Katie, who was the lead of the short, was also attached. And we spent a long time sort of struggling. 3 writers is very hard. And we got to the end and we wrote this feature, and all these people had said, oh, we want to read it, and we, love the short so much. And then we sent it out, and we got, I think, I'm going to exaggerate just a little. I think it was something very close to 40 no's. Something like 30. It was a lot. It was a lot of no's. A lot of those people that we thought, oh, that company, like they're definitely going to want to make it. It was a lot of no's. To be fair, we did not understand anything about the industry. You cannot get a feature made with a not famous lead actress. That is very hard. So anyway, but at that point we'd gone through a lot of pain of rejection, and it was a really hard decision for Katie and I to both step down. I stepped down not because I couldn't get it made with me, but it just felt like actually after so much rejection and a lot of other things going on that it was the best thing for the project if we just were like, what happens if we were just writers? And we just were like, what if we could just send this project forward as far as we can take it? How far could we take it? It became like a whole new plan for it. And I would often imagine that we were curling, which I know is a Canadian sport and maybe not everybody cares, but you like throw this stone down ice and then people like kind of clean the ice and try to see how far it'll go, literally. And so we were constantly saying, well, what's the path of least resistance? What's the path of least resistance? And there have been a couple of producers who were interested in making it if Katie was not attached. And so we went back to one of them. We said, do you want to make it? This was Alex Sachs. She said, I do. And she said, I have some directors. She sent us to some directors. Rachel Lambert said, oh my God. She literally said I would slit my wrist to direct this.
It feels on brand for the film.
Thank you so much. Which I thought was great. And so we said, okay, let's do it. And she knew Daisy Ridley. And so we sent it to Daisy. And within 12 hours, her and her agent had read it and said yes. So, and then here we are with the opening night feature. So it's a real lesson in let it be what it's going to be.
That's beautiful. All right, another movie trope or TV trope. Rejection villain origin story. You might not have this. I have 1,000. A time you let a rejection define you before you gained power over it.
I guess I could go because they're thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I think about dying definitely felt like that at some point. It did feel like, well, I mean, I think I can spill this tea. There was a point at which Katie, Kevin, and I weren't speaking to each other. I mean, it was really difficult. But I'll do a different one just to talk about more stories of rejection.
Yeah.
I was in theater before I was in film. I know, I was directing plays. That's why every movie I write is a play. An adapted play. Anyway, I used to get rejected all the time. I just got rejected all the time. In film, I get rejected less, thank God. But in theater, I couldn't get into any program. I couldn't get into any program at all. And my dad is shaking his head because I feel like I'm going to tell a story about you. I just remember like crying on the corner of Red Hook thinking, I can't be an artist. My dad's a therapist and he was... which is kind of the same job as a director. And, we talk a lot about how our work is very similar. My uncle also is a therapist. You're kind of my uncle. Anyway, and I remember crying and thinking, I'm just going to quit. Like, I should just be a therapist. And like, I don't know how to make this happen. So, it was quite defining, and I really thought about quitting. And I think in just saying that maybe I could quit, it made me think, I don't want to quit. And then I started a theater company, and that theater company, really gave me what was my theater career at the time, and let me do things on my own and not have to ask for permission from people. And then that's when we got great reviews, and suddenly I had sort of a foothold in the door. Was just sort of saying, maybe I can just do it myself.
Wow. Yes. It's so much. It's so much, and so many layers to this. But I was actually just thinking about rejection that I didn't get. Because I think that half of the time we're posturing ourselves from a position of, what if I get rejected? And so the fear is always looming over us, and it guides a lot of what we do. And so I was a person who people used to think I was really, really confident individual, and I was in certain rooms. But you get me into another room, and I am like this. And at the time, it was because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I'm a native of Atlanta, from the southwest side of town, and that is a very traditional Black American existence of folks who go to church on Sunday, and they tithe, and they do all of this, and they look at folks like me, and they're very confused. And I wasn't comfortable in my skin to be in any of those rooms where I would see people who looked like that. But if I was out in my, entertainment world with my hip hop friends and all of that, you couldn't tell me a damn thing. But remember, I needed to transition. I like to call it the remix, because I started in the hip hop industry. I used to do thousands of music videos with people like Nicki Minaj and Missy Elliott and all these different people. And when I remixed and wanted to go onto this other side to do this purpose work, there's this barrier here, a self-imposed barrier that I'm going to be rejected. So I had gotten contracted by this amazing heritage newspaper in Atlanta to tell their story. They were turning 50 years old, and I got a chance to document that. So I needed to do this little short film. I was so proud of it. And they were going to premiere it at an event with the mayor, and it was a big gala. And I had never gone to a gala dressed as I am today. I had never put on a tux or suit, looking like, what we would consider to be something that a man would wear. But that's how I wanted to show up. And I sat in the car, and I did not want to get out of that vehicle. I was polarized. And something in me finally was like, Lisa, you're here. I'm almost tearing up thinking about this. You've got to get out of this car. And I got out, walked through the crowd, and people were just, there she is, because I had missed the premiere of the little video that I had done. I was that scared. And the first man who comes up to me is the editor's husband, and he says, I haven't met you. He said, first of all, he's about 65 years old, and he says, I first want to ask you how you identify. A 65-year-old Black man asked me how I identify. And I said, I'm she, her, And he goes, well, girl, you did your thing. And when I tell you, that was my aha moment. That was it. From that day forward, I walked into every damn room without fearing rejection, because it no longer had power over me.
Ooh. I'm going to bawl. Do y'all have a story You don't have to. If you
No,
don't. Okay.
actually, I have
go there.
one.
Let's go there.
I think so. It's kind of a firm belief, at least my life experience, that often before the most wonderful thing that's going to happen to you happens, life takes you to your knees, and that rise sometimes is very slow to get back up. And so, thinking about, I think, really coming back. I'll reference the most recent that we've already kind of talked about, but coming back from Thailand into the United States, I kind of had reverse culture shock. And through COVID, applying for jobs, I went almost a year working in volunteer roles and contract jobs, but really didn't have anything stable. And I thought, man, my resume, like what I've been working toward, and just constant rejection after rejection and so much interview, it's so draining. And you know, vulnerability and community are two of my like top values. But professional vulnerability, I'm great at it personally. Professionally being vulnerable is very difficult for me because that is like, I'm type A, that's where I excel. And I think having that year, it really kind of wrecked my self-esteem. And it was a very hard build for me. And then we went straight into building a business. I was a brand new entrepreneur. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And so it was so complicated because I felt like I was relearning a brand new skill and starting from the very, very beginning, and having to put myself out every single day in the most vulnerable way to say, like, I don't know, like, what's next. And so thank God, been holding hands and stumbling through this together. So that's community for you. And vulnerability has been off the charts. But every time we take big steps forward, I know this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So I've been so patient with this rise, knowing that eventually, like, it will be the end game, and it's everything that I've ever wanted. But it's been a slow comeback. It really has for me personally. And every day I step a little bit more into my power.
Yeah, I can share one. So my past life, I was sales, biz dev, rainmaker of the company. And I, growing up, came from a family where financial stability wasn't part of the game, part of the equation. So when you achieved it, it was like you stay exactly put because you're getting the thing that generations before you didn't have access to. And that gives you options, your education, your savings account. So when I chose to leave, you know, I had friends and I had my partner who was supportive, but when I went to like my family of origin, they had no idea. They were like, that is the most insane thing you can do. Like, you're throwing it all out the window. My dad's like, you should go beg your boss back for that job. Like, you know, so as someone who very much wanted to please the place I was from, had to sit with, it's okay if they don't understand this. Of course, now I was like, guys, we're going to speak at Sundance. They're like, oh my God, we knew it. They did not. They did not. And so for me, we were the first year, I think, stumbling into a new space. I had spent 10 years in one industry and that I knew well. I knew my way around. I knew how to make deals happen. But as we started to get into this space of being content creators, learning the creative economy, there was this story in my mind of, and it had been told to probably a lot of us, like the starving artist. Like, it's hard to be financially successful. It's hard to do that. And we were driving one day and I was like, dude, I'm so over money being hard. And like, I fucking love money because it allows me a lot of options. So what are we going to do? And she was like, yeah, that's not a good place for me, but you loving money makes me want that. So what are we going to do? And it was this permission. I had sat in that for a year of making myself really small and sitting in circles where I resonate a lot with what you were saying, Lisa, of like, in certain circles, I could be really boisterous and really but in other spaces, especially in creative spaces, I was like, I'm just like a little baby creative and I don't really know. And what do you guys think? And that finally, like, saying to her, like, I'm done with this. We have a good friend of ours, he says, struggle needs a dead end. And that was our moment of like, I'm done. And she was such an affirmation to be like, yeah, if you can do that, it's hard for me to step into my power for myself, but to do it for her or do it for my community. And that was the day I just put that villain away. And since then, it's like doors have opened consistently, both financially and through connections for our business.
So many good villain origin stories. Lisa reminded me of, like, because I probably suppressed this, but I was so comfortable in the rejection because, you know, I was doing comedy. I've been doing comedy for over a decade. So we get that instant rejection on stage. It is, talk about vulnerability. The breakthrough for me was when I got Alexa's running off, the Sundance Episodic Lab. acceptance, and I thought it was a joke, actually, because they sent a rejection letter first because they had a glitch in the email. So so there was like a day, it was 4/20, I remember distinctly, and like 3 really good things happened to me, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna get hit by a car. Because I was like, I have OCD, so I'm like, naturally, something bad has to happen. I went on SSRIs like the year I got into the Sundance lab, because I was like, I am not used to the wins. I'm like, let me stay cozy in my rejection comforter. Like, I was not used to that at all. And so I had to convince myself, sorry guys, day 4, blame it on the altitude. I had to convince myself that I was worthy of being in those rooms because I was so comfortable being shut out. Moving on. While creators, storytellers, and filmmakers are expected to garner accolades through script competitions, film festivals, awards, fellowships, labs, grants, etc., how can we prevent those avenues of external validation from dictating our self-worth and the value of our work?
So a lot in our business, we talk about perceived positions of power. And it's really about stepping into your personal power. And we've really tried to base so much of the stories. I mean, our business model is stories inform your beliefs, beliefs inform actions, actions inform systems. And so for us, it's really about how you feel in your personal power that I think propels you forward. And I think we're, thank God, coming out of an era of where accolades matter less, and actions matter more.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yes. To piggyback and not to just get so esoteric, like I need to take my shoes off and go like this. But one of the books that changed my life was The 4 Agreements. And so much of what we do and are, and I'm thinking about your corporate story, is an agreement that we signed up for that somebody else, your poverty mentality of, feast or famine, all of these things are an agreement that somebody else signed up for us and we didn't sign up for it. Same thing with the validation from these festivals and things. And so it's not to knock that part of the system, and that's where people get it wrong. It's to kind of reimagine how you fit into it with whatever agreement you sign up for that makes you your healthiest, happiest, and whole self. And that's, that's a game changer because, that means that you have to genuinely realize that when you were born, you signed up for rejection. See, we think that we signed up for only the good times. No, when these spirits decided to come into these vessels, we actually signed up for all of the contrast. But we act like we only signed up for the success. And so the reimagining of all of these archetypes should be easy for us once we level set that I signed up for this. So if I didn't get accepted here, I'll get accepted here. And as we say in the Black community, a delay is not a denial, and we keep on moving. But it's hard for people like us who've been ingrained in these certain things to not be that way. But that's another story.
We have the therapist here on the call.
We've got 2. I think about this all the time. I've been thinking about this for such a long time, and for me, it's because you get into Sundance and people think, "Well, your life must be great." And there's
I hear that.
Right? There's this sense that like it's solved, and that's what I thought. I got my short into Sundance, and I remember talking to my mom, being like, I don't need to work. I'm going to get paid to be a director." 4 years later, LOL. So I think people look from seeing these shiny things that we all think are shiny. I feel that way too, and it seems like, well, your life must be kind of magical in some way, but that's not true. I mean, I live in a studio apartment, I'm single, not that that's bad, not that either of those things are bad, but like I'm almost 37. These aren't things I thought I would have. I'm very happy, but that's what I think about more than anything is like, well, what is your everyday? Yeah. What are you doing every day? Like the last year, every day or 4 days a week, I go to my friend Katie's house and we write together, and we write from 9 to 4, and I really love doing that. And also just recently I was like, I need a break from this. I want to direct some more. And that's what your life is. It isn't these moments. It isn't the premiere, honestly. I mean, we just premiered on Thursday. I'm going to forget most of that night like it was my bat mitzvah, you know what I mean? Or your wedding or something. And it was really wonderful, but that's what people focus on, is we were all dressed up and Daisy Ridley was there. But like, that's not what I do 363 days of the year, So I think that's the way to stay grounded in yourself as an artist and what you want to be making, and even how to deal with the rejection that comes is like, am I enjoying my life? Do I like this work I'm making? Am I proud of it? There will be somebody who will not reject it, I promise. But you have to keep coming back to you, yourself, your day, literally, and not like get all into the shiny premiere nights.
Whew, damn, we're going there. Thank God for these on-call therapists. So I shared my rejection, my Sundance rejection, in an Instagram post. And I was inspired by a friend who shared her rejection. She was on IndieWire's, features, or we can't wait to probably see at Sundance before they announced. And then she got rejected. And this is Claire Ayoub. Shout out to Claire. She's a friend and a mentor. And her feature was Empire Waste. She was here in 2020 with the Kacie and Illis Blacklist Fellowship. And, it climbed the Blacklist charts. It was, everyone loved it. And her production company is called Try Anyway. And so she posted a post-it that said Try Anyway. And she shared her rejection. And I was like, and that was a week before I got mine. And I'm like, ooh, I didn't even think about the possibility of getting rejected because I really thought we checked all the boxes. But then she made me feel comfortable sharing the rejection. And so then I shared it on social, as you do, as a middle child and comedian whose, source of need is external validation. So I want to ask our panelists, what do you think would happen if more people shared their losses as much as their wins? Yesterday at the MPAC panel, I know Sue's here, Needham and Zor said that Polite Society, which is also a feature premiering here, was rejected for 10 years. And that made me feel less alone. That made me feel like more normal. So what do you think would happen if we started posting these rejections as much as these, screenshots of Deadline articles?
I was thinking about that because I just I saw something on Strong Black Lead with the gentleman that is starring in Kaleidoscope, Giancarlo, I forget his last name, but this big Netflix thing, right? And so he's talking about how he goes on this, casting call, and the casting director says, you need to learn how to act. And then she goes, for camera, right? All right. So, and she tells him he probably needs to go explore theater, right? And so he goes off, and about a year later, he gets a call back, and it's for the movie Taps, which ends up being, I guess, his big breakout role. And she has him come, and they're blown away at the casting. And he says, she says, what have you been doing? He said, I went and did what you told me to do. I've been doing theater. And so I was thinking about that, and I just saw this like last week or the week before posted, and I was thinking about it in the sense of, okay, if we start quieting our minds when we get these rejections, first of all, right? And there's a phrase that he used, and I think he credited Viola Davis for telling him it, that every day we should strive to slay our egos. And so imagine if he hadn't slayed his ego when she gave him that criticism, and he would not have gone, and because if you're not in a community, you all know how hard it is. In Atlanta, we do a lot of commercial work and stuff, and I do a lot of branded content work. I don't know many TV folks. I don't know, many film folks. I just don't know it because the worlds are so separate. So imagine this man had to go find the theater community, get booked, do all of this in this time. And so that meant he had to relinquish his ego in order to do it. And so that's, to me, that's definitely something that you've got to do in order to turn, as this panel's talking about, turning that rejection into your power. And then when you quiet yourself, I do want to say this too. I don't know who's in everybody's lives, because at different times in my life, I've had some piss poor ass people in my life, right? So you have to know when you get the rejection, don't call that piss poor ass friend, right?
Yeah.
Sync with yourself for a minute on it, and then figure out, because that spirit of discernment, you need to know, was that good rejection, or is that somebody just being an asshole for the sake of being an asshole? Mm-hmm. Or in your case, we don't know what all of the layers of things led to, you not making it into this year's Sundance. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, make sure that you call on the right people, and you sit with yourself quietly after the rejection.
Yeah, shout out to Julie Haberstick, because I called her after my South by Southwest rejection on our Christmas break, and she talked to me off the ledge. I was like, should I be a doctor? Should I be a lawyer? And it's like, I don't read books fast enough. But how about y'all?
Well, so the company was built out of a deficit of narratives of people having these failure moments. I found myself in a place incredibly alone, talking about community. My professional network I didn't feel value aligned in all places. My family, while there was immense love, didn't necessarily understand what was happening in my world. I was going through a lot of changes as a new parent. And so there's a line that I started saying, and this is, think about the person in your life that every time you go to their house for dinner and like nothing's ever wrong, or the professional, it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? I have never felt more alone than in the presence of perfection. The perfect person that you're around, that you leave feeling bad about yourself, that is not about you, that is about them. And so for me, I started saying, what do I want to be known for? I love what you said. Like, how do you want to spend your days? I walk 30 steps to my best friend's back door. And even on our worst day, like one day when we're killing it, what do I want to do? Walk 30 steps to my back door to my best friend's house to have coffee. And so that to me has been this like shifting. And then I'm going to credit Sesame Street. Because I have a 3.5-year-old, and Elmo was really upset one day because his Halloween costume wasn't as cool as somebody else's, but he had made it himself. And one of the adults on there taught me this the day. She said, before you saw your friend's costume, how did you feel about your costume? And he said, I loved it. And she goes, good, that should be just the end of how you feel about it. And so I think about that a lot of the work we're doing. If I can sit in my fuck it all moment, if I can sit in my failure, and we fortunately have built a business on doing that, so that's really nice. But if I can do that and then feel good about that, that is enough. And then similarly, in my past life, I worked with a lot of like, no diss here, but a lot of straight white men in corporate America. The amount of people that then came forward when I started talking about this, they came out of the woodwork and said, I went through this, my wife went through this, my friend went through, my kids went through this, I'm sharing this. And the people that have become advocates, they were not the people I thought. And so to me, it became, while our FIA moments might be at a higher clip, this is resonant with so many people, and they were yearning for it. And we say the patriarchy serves like this percentage of people. So like, let's undo that.
We also practice in the business, I'll go first. So in order to kind of breed a more vulnerable, safe space for people to talk about their failures and rejections, it's I'll go first. And so we're all here going first. Welcoming others to share these stories. So much of our media and coverage and the stories we hear from friends, family, others, community, society is like rags to riches, or it's like, man, I was going through a hard time 10 years ago and now everything's great. Yeah. And I have the best job and the best life and the best family, and you're just like, well, great. When were you on the floor crying? Because that's what I want to hear about, because that's what I'm going through right now. And so putting together the whole story, and that's what we're really trying to capture is the vulnerability. I mean, we're all human. This is, yeah.
I'm ashamed to say that I only post the good things on Instagram.
So do I. I just started doing the loss twice, but no, so do I.
I also don't use Instagram almost at all, and the only thing I post on it is like work
look
things
how great
like
my life
twice
is.
a year.
Resume then, that's okay.
Thank you so much. But it is true, I really don't. But I do talk to my friends about it all the time. and all my other artist friends, we all talk about it. I always tell if someone calls and wants to like have like a mentor hour or whatever, I will just constantly be like, this is a long road, like you're gonna get rejected, you're gonna fail so much. I also have students, and I always say filmmaking is about failure. Like that's what we do as artists. We just fail and then try to fix it. We fail and then try to fix it. I mean, you don't like shoot something and it's just perfect. You know, your first edit sucks every time. The first edit of the short, Sometimes I Think About Dying, was 20 minutes and so depressing. My parents hated it.
And they're therapists, so they're in the business of depressing.
I got an earful about how she was behaving. So, you know, you're just constantly failing, and I think that's what you have to get used to. That's what you have to love. Like, that's the fun. That's the, I don't know. It feels like constraints are fun, right? It's how we get creative, truly. So I think, yes, definitely share it. Talk to your people that this edit sucks. Talk to your people that you just got rejected. What do you want to do instead? Like, I just think yeah, definitely. Just talk about it, share it. I'm sorry it's not on my Instagram, but I'll tell you all about it if you want to talk.
No, I think just, talking about it, especially, you know, with other people in your community, outside your community, is so helpful, because you wouldn't know that person. Like, I didn't know that you had like 30 to 40 no's. I didn't know that Polite Society was rejected for 10 years. Like, I need to hear those stories because it makes me feel less insane for picking such a ridiculous industry. But thank you. I want to thank our panelists so much for their time. Please support their work. Yes, please clap. Lisa, Katie, Kacie, and Stefanie. Everything they're doing is brilliant and beautiful, and I'm so grateful you shared the ugly and not fun parts of the work we do. So I really appreciate that, and thank you everyone for coming. We have one more panel after this, so you can stick around. We'll have a little bathroom break and drink break, and then we'll reconvene shortly. And appreciate y'all. Yeah.
Thanks to everybody watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.